All right, guys. Good morning. Good morning. All right, so in today's live stream, we're going to be covering where we're at in the 0 to 90 day launch of a new arm of our business in terms of where we're at against the $1 million goal. And we're going to be covering something that actually came up quite a bit yesterday in some of my calls, which was the actual when you're switching over to a new CRM or, for example, HubSpot, how you can actually run data validation with your automated reporting so that you can actually cross-reference to make sure your new automated reports that are within HubSpot are accurate. So, for example, a lot of individuals that I spoke to yesterday, they are running new dashboards for their setters, new dashboards for their closers, new dashboards for marketing, for attribution, and they're not confident that the data is correct. So I'm going to show you guys exactly how you can validate the accuracy of the actual data that you're getting from your HubSpot reports. And also, if you've had reports or dashboards built for a long time, how you can basically push all of the data into basically a data pool, and how you can actually cross-reference to make sure that the data in your actual reports and dashboards are accurate, even if you've had the dashboards for quite some time. So with that being said, we're going to be covering a few other things. I'm going to be giving some updates. And yeah, so let's dive in. So in terms of yesterday, what happened here? One second, guys. All right, there we go. Yeah, it's a lot more difficult to run this by myself than when Dean is actually here. So we're gonna do our best. But anyways, so updates from yesterday. I spoke with a lot of people from Paris. I went to a keynote and then a mastermind out in Paris last week. So I had a lot of calls with individuals there, just figuring out kind of what problems they were having. These are companies that are much bigger, doing a lot of volume, anywhere from 10 million to 100, 150 million a year, primarily in the info and software space. So I had a lot of calls with those individuals, and obviously their pain points are a lot more different than obviously somebody who's just getting set up on, say, HubSpot, so sub 5 million a year. Or say, for example, somebody that, is just getting started. I would say most of our clients fall between that kind of, I would say 5 and 10 million mark. And then a ton are in that like 10 to 50 million mark, maybe higher. And then we do have outliers that are obviously much, much larger, but their problems are usually around getting their actual leadership teams to fully understand the platform so that they can ideate and execute and read data and know what to do with that data. And when they're finding bottlenecks and problems, basically not having to guess and figure out what to do, but actually to essentially put in what they actually should in the quickest, I would say, way possible, right? So anyways, the thing I heard over and over and over again yesterday was how do we actually make sure that our reporting is accurate? How do we verify that our systems are set up and running properly and that people are using them, right? And there's really two different ways that we like to do it. One, we put in different like automated or augmented management systems across like the pipeline or across the front end of the setter process or within the confirmation process of the pre-call, reactivation. So we can kind of see across the entire sales process and with marketing based on what reporting and what automations we're putting in place. So for example, very, very easy one. I think I have a YouTube video on this as well. And this is just the first example that comes to mind, but like pipeline management can very easily be automated, meaning if you have a booked call and the deal is in a discovery call booked or a closing call booked stage, once the meeting end time has passed, right? If it goes X amount of time past the end time, you can tag it, you can roll it into end of day notification that goes out saying, hey, you need to update this. And then also you can roll it into reports, basically saying this is a meeting that still does not have the disposition updated, so that you can track every single individual on your team individually and overall on all of the deals and dispositions that haven't been updated, so that your reporting stays accurate, right? So that's an example. On the other side, you would have basically confirmation that your data is accurate coming out of your reports. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit about what that looks like. I'll give updates on where we're at metrics wise towards the end. So let's see here. Nice. I know how to use this now. Let's go. All right. So whenever you're running a new dashboard, right? Like let's say we wanted to validate this dashboard. What you guys will see is when we have the entire essentially dashboard created that we want for example, all of our baseline metrics. So everything that we're actually putting into this sheet here. So our calls booked, our I'm not sure if this is subs or whatever, but let's say we want to validate our lead flow, our calls booked, our calls completed, our show rate, our lead to close percentage, our close rates. We wanted to validate all of this information. What we can actually do is inside of HubSpot workflows, if I can get there. Yep, there we go. And we built this out last night just to kind of go over this and then also validate some new data for us for this new dashboard that we're building. So you can take all of the different basically data points that you need to validate and you can push them in. So for example, if I wanted to do all of the, let's just say sales calls that are being booked for this particular offer, this particular dashboard, right? I can set up those to trigger the workflow. We're going to set a quick delay, but we can update and push all of that information, obviously, such as like when the call was booked, when it was scheduled for. So obviously the day that it actually got booked, when it was scheduled for, the company name, first name, last name, email, phone number, booked to, so whoever the actual closer is, meeting event type, meaning disco, closing call, follow-up, all of that stuff. Is it an outbound call or an inbound call? So did they book directly through the funnel, or was it an actual outbound rep, or for example, automation or email that booked the meeting? Booking link used would just be the actual like confirmation, or not confirmation, but the actual link that's used, so we can track where the links are being used from. Original traffic source, so whether they were paid, organic, our drill down 1, drill down 2, so whether it was Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Google, and then drill down 2 would be like the campaign, so which campaign on Facebook, if it was paid, or if we have a campaign in HubSpot for any of the organic campaigns. Anyways, booked by, so setter owner, and it can go on and on, right? And say, for example, if we weren't doing booked calls, let's run the, so we run a lot of low ticket offers. We talk about that. And then we also run our high ticket and upsells. So if I want all of that information, so say, for example, I want to have all of this information going into a Google Sheet. So the reason that we're pushing into a Google Sheet when we have a new dashboard or report set up is because a lot of people know how to really, I would say, manipulate spreadsheets, obviously, right? They're really good at setting up formulas, visualizing data, doing what they need to do. They're not fully up to speed with HubSpot yet. And the cool thing that you can do with this is if all of the data is coming into your Google Sheet, you can build out your charts and basically similar metrics that you have inside of your HubSpot dashboards, and you can validate across the two. So if I go look at my discovery calls booked for this week or the last 7 days or whatever the case may be in HubSpot, and it says 12 or 20 or 50 or 60, and then I go into my spreadsheet, I'm going to be able to cross-reference and make sure that that data is accurate. And then all of my drill down metrics, so like show rate or DPL or close rate. And I'm going to fix the camera, guys, 1 second. All right, there we go. So anyways, such as like dollar per lead or close rate per sales rep, or for example, lead to booking percentages, these reports in HubSpot can get messy quickly, meaning if you change stuff or properties aren't getting used or whatever the case may be in the actual reports. And a lot of the times people just don't know how to actually manipulate or go in and make sure that reports are built properly, especially over a long period of time. However, in Google Sheets, all of that data is coming in a raw format that you can adjust and basically edit very, very easily in the Google Sheets. Now, obviously for us, for example, we can build out probably at the same speed or actually faster inside of HubSpot and be more confident because we know exactly how to set these reports up and cross-check them and do all of this stuff. But what it allows us to do also, and this is something that is probably very important, especially for some companies that are switching, they're redoing a build or they are wanting to make sure that they have all of their data in their own, spot. So it's not just living on platform, it's also taken off platform. Say you're doing a migration out of a pipeline, or you're doing a migration of properties, or you're doing any of these things, you can still push all of that information into a Google Sheet. So whenever you set up the workflow and you go to actually turn it on, you can run it for everybody that meets the criteria. So you can run every single person, push them into a sheet. And then, for example, what we did, and I can't pull up the sheet because there's a lot of actual information in there that I'm not allowed to put on YouTube, such as email, phone number, specific URL, campaign IDs, a whole bunch of different stuff, payment information. But what you can do is you can push all of that information in, and then you can use Google Scripts and ChatGPT and stuff along those lines to help kind of clean it up, which is also really nice. So instead of having to do, like, let's say you have a bunch of calls that are missing a specific property, right? Like, so for example, we like to run booking scores. So if I go back to basically the calls being booked, you'll see what I mean here. So all sales calls being booked for this new offer, new funnel, right? What we do is we run it in and we upload all of that information, right? So everything that we would want that comes in immediately as the call is being booked. And then if we want to update that sheet, so if, say, for example, you want to update that sheet for was the call completed, or was it a no-show, or were they qualified, right? You can actually use a separate, basically, step in the workflow. So instead of create row and fill in that row, you can update the sheet. So for example, in this workflow, we have basically a trigger that is whenever the property value is changed. So whenever the property name, booking quality, score has a new value, and then also, right, additional like conditions, right? They have gone through that booked sales call workflow that I was just showing you. What it's going to do is it's going to go in, look for the spreadsheet, find the sheet name, so the actual tab name, look up the ID. So you can either push like the contact ID, the deal ID, or anything along those lines. We use email just because it's simple. And then if they don't find it, no. And then we're actually updating that booking quality score. So any of those calls that happen or get completed are also going to go back to the sheet and update. For example, we use a 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 being that they are a 3 out of 3 fit, meaning they are a program fit, so they fit exactly what we do. They're qualified, okay, and they're within our ICP, right? 3 being they're 2 of those 3, so they're a program fit and they're ICP, or they're a program fit and qualified, or any of those 2. 1 or 2 would be just one of those, so ICP without a program fit or without qualified, or they are program qualified, or program fit, sorry, not qualified or not ICP, and then 0 or 1 is they don't fit any of those criteria. So makes it really easy for us to obviously see what our actual quality is of our calls being booked, especially when we're getting a lot of volume like this with our direct bookings. So anyways, it's a pretty unique process, and it just makes things really, really easy to make sure your data is correct. Also stamp everything, so keep everything historically in somewhere that a lot more people are basically used to being able to manipulate data. Usually if you have an operations manager, if you have different individuals, sales directors, or whatever the case may be, they're usually really good in Google Sheets or spreadsheets. They're usually not very good inside of CRMs in terms of visualizer reporting, unless they've been on the platform for a while or they're in our program and they get trained on how to do it. This allows you to do a lot of really nice things in Google Sheets, but still fully run automated reporting out of HubSpot. So transitioning kind of away from the, I would say, reporting standpoint, let's jump back over to the main screen. Nice. All right, so a couple things. We ran exactly this process for all of our low ticket purchases, all of our booked sales calls, all of our program purchases. So everybody that obviously is in this new program with us. And we started looking at the data. Obviously, I talked to you guys yesterday about how slammed my calendar is to where I'm at capacity in terms of I can't take any more sales calls to prove out this offer. So we had the discussion kind of as a team to try and figure out basically what we were going to do, because we either have bring on a closer, right, and limit the amount of slots I take per day. So for example, I still want to be on the sales calls so that I can get the information that people are looking for when they come into these sales calls, right? Figure out kind of what and where people are at, mostly validate kind of marketing, build out the script, the call recording, basically backlog, all of our resources for onboarding and training. So I still have to do this. I can't just delegate, and you shouldn't just delegate because you're like at capacity. That's not the answer. The answer isn't how do I get all of this off my plate right away. It should be how do I keep my ear to the ground, but also allow for us to scale up a bit, right? And that was kind of what we were trying to solve for. So we came up with 2 different basically questions to answer. So one was, if we went the route of bringing on a setter and a closer, what would my number of calls that I would want per day before the overflow goes to the closer? So obviously if we bring on a setter, because we don't have one right now, but we're getting completely booked out, meaning if we bring on a setter, we're going to have no calendar space, and we already don't have calendar space. Yesterday I had to go and basically open up my evenings. So open up my calendar from usually where I have it blocked at 6. So I opened it from 6 to 9. So I opened up a bunch of slots all day, and then I opened up my Saturday as well because of what we were getting in terms of bookings. So anyways, if we bring on a setter, that means that they won't even have calendar space to book. So we have to bring on a setter and a closer at the same time if we want this to work. Now, I can't take any more sales calls because it's taking me from everything else that I need to do. So our first option was that I would take 2 to 3 calls, bookings, whatever you want to say, per day. And then everything else past that would get overflowed to the closer. Okay. So this is a good option. The problem with it is that right now we're in hyperdrive. So I'm working on a ton of marketing. We're working on product. We're working with a bunch of the clients. It's just a very intense period. So bringing on new reps prior to having our entire basically checklist done that we build whenever we want to bring on a new role. So for example, if we're bringing on a sales rep, we need to have all of the call logs of all of our past sales recordings. So at least 10 closed won. We want at least 5 like lost deals. We want our confirmation recordings. We want our outbound call recordings. We want our script created. We want our objections created. We want all of our decks created. We want all of these assets and all these materials created. And then also we need system and process rework and training there as well, rolled into an onboarding and training sheet. Otherwise, it's going to take us way too long, and we can't, basically give them a really fair shot. Otherwise, I'm going to be the one doing everything in terms of training them, meaning I have to give my time every single time they need help with something. So I don't have time to do that. So our second thought was, how do we just change the model to go one-to-many in the sales process, right? So our initial thought was, if we take all of our funnels and we increase ad spend by, say, about 50%, which we can do, we're very profitable on ad spend right now. And then also we're liquidating, like we talked about yesterday, anywhere from 60 to 80% of our ad spend day of with the low ticket offers. So if we increase our ad spend by about 50%, and then we take the traffic after the low ticket purchase and split it 50-50, one going to registration for like a masterclass, so a bigger presentation, a lot of value, basically showing them exactly what we're finding that's really working, and then making an offer towards the end, and then basically chatting with anybody that doesn't take us up on their offer or has questions or whatever the case may be. So that would allow us to obviously get a lot more conversations and information out there with a lot of the people that are now booking calls all at the same time, right? But we can't just fully switch that. So we can't do 100% switch to that because right now the call bookings are working, and we also need these call one-on-one bookings to continue building out our sales process and getting all of our objectives done so that we can bring on a sales team. So in order to do that, we would have to 50-50 split, half to the webinars or the master classes, right? And then half to the individual bookings, which we're still going to need to bring on another setter and another closer if we want to do that. So we're going to be thinking this through this week and figuring out kind of what we want to do. I've got a few calls today with different individuals that might be able to come in and help us kind of streamline this so that we don't have to we don't have to rush anything. We can make sure that we're doing this properly. All right, let's get into the numbers real quick. So let's see here. All right. All right, so we did book a ton more calls. I haven't had time to update this sheet. We're going to be moving into the automated, and then also the automated, like these numbers are going to be automated through the basically workflows that I showed you guys earlier in this video. So we're going to push all this data from HubSpot into this sheet. And then also our marketing metrics are going to get a hell of a lot more specific because of all the drill down reporting that we're going to be pushing into these sheets as well. So we don't have to rely on HubSpot yet until we have that set up for the new arm of the business. So right now we're sitting at, what did we do yesterday? I think around 7. So we're sitting around 180 in revenue, about 114, 13 in cash collected. And this is over the last basically 15-ish days. We're on day 23, I believe. Yeah, 23. But there was a week where I was out of office completely, and then Dean was obviously out as well. So we're probably about true run rate on this kind of 90-day challenge, probably right around day 16, 17. So we're doing pretty decent. We're a little behind in terms of pace, but We're making that up pretty quickly with obviously the new funnel and stuff that we were talking about yesterday, which is really nice. And then we have come up with some pretty unique ways that really are going to help everybody in the program, but also give us basically a stronger LTV, and then also give the clients a faster time to value. So that's what I mean by being on the sales calls and delegating that too early. You're not going to catch these things. So for example, a lot of the format for our program has come from the needs of obviously everybody on these calls, right? A lot of the content that they're asking for or the problems that they're having are stuff that we're going and taking and building and then basically testing. And if it proves the results that we think it will prove, then we're rolling that into the program. So we are creating an absurd amount of content in that program right now. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, to be completely honest. So yeah, let's see. So not too much has changed there. Our ROAS is staying pretty consistent. In terms of revenue, ROAS, we're at about 18.38. And then cash, we're sitting just above 11, which is nice. Show rate's been strong. We haven't had a problem with show rate pretty much at all. With the new funnel and with low ticket offers, you do get a lot of the random individuals that are booking just because they really like the asset and they get through everything. So those individuals typically, they don't even show up, or if they do, it's a very quick conversation. And we always try and help them out as best we can. So yeah, we really haven't had too big of a problem with show rate. Obviously there's certain days and certain hours and time frames that, this is actually another really good point. So me and Harrison were on, Harrison's individual that runs our internal operations, yesterday, trying to figure out what to do with my calendar capacity space, and mitigate kind of no shows and low quality and stuff along those lines. And one of the things that we came up with was there was a HubSpot study that talked about best times to get highest connection rates and then highest set basically percentages when you're reaching out to leads. So we started looking into basically within our space, right? What were the best times to take sales calls or to let people book calls? So basically this is what we found kind of across a bunch of different sources. So optimal times for allowing people to book sales calls: late afternoon, 4 to 5 p.m. or around this time frame. Higher attendance rates. Scheduling calls at 4 p.m. increases the likelihood prospects showing up by about 30% compared to 8 a.m. slots or early morning slots. So afternoon, mid to late afternoon is usually kind of the highest attendance rate. Prospects are more likely available, attentive during this time, and they typically address their most pressing tasks early day. Yeah, so I mean, it makes sense, right? Logically, if you're waking up, like for example, if I have a call in an hour, I'm gonna have 6 billion things going through my head that I need to do. Whereas if I get to the end of the day, I'm gonna be more focused on that call and probably prepared for it as well. Mid weekdays. So best times, let's call it 3 to 6, 3 to 7, right? Best days, based on what we could find, was Wednesdays and Thursdays. So Wednesdays and Thursdays are identified as the most effective days for making contact and qualifying leads, with a 49.7% higher success rate compared to the worst day, which is Tuesday and then Monday. And this goes in a similar effect for booked calls, okay? These days often have fewer internal meetings and distractions, allowing prospects to focus more on external engagements. That makes a ton of sense, actually. My Monday is completely screwed because of how many internal meetings we have. And then obviously Wednesdays and Thursdays are my most open with the least amount of internal meetings, which makes sense. Additional time slots to consider: mid-morning, so 10 to 12, early afternoon, 2 to 3. Times to avoid: early mornings, anything before 10 a.m. basically. Lunchtime, so 12 to 1:30ish or 11:30 to 1:30. And then late evenings after, say, 7, 8 p.m. Obviously, take all that information with a grain of salt, right? We try to find as best as we could. What we're going to do now is actually we're going to take the Google Sheet that we pushed all of our bookings into, and because we have the show rates, so who actually completed their calls, who didn't show up, etc., we're going to be looking at the actual date and time of their their meeting and take all the no-shows and figure out where people are no-showing so that we can, A, block that time in our calendar so people are forced to book in better time frames, and then B, give me some time back on my calendar so I can take less calls and get the same basically effect as if I was taking all of them throughout that entire day. So some interesting stuff there. Kind of going on a little circle tangent, but yeah, metrics are looking great, guys. We're about to break that 200 mark, which I think we should do, between today and tomorrow, definitely before this weekend's. Dean will be back here tomorrow, I think. Yeah, it's Tuesday, so he'll be back here tomorrow. So we'll be kind of running our regular routine. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else, big news for you guys between yesterday and today. Doesn't really look like it. Cool. Yeah, so I think that is it for today. If you guys have questions, again, drop it down below, comment. We'd love to hear from you guys. Also, if anybody wants to come on, solve any problems live, we're more than happy and actually wanting to do that. So if you're on HubSpot and you're running a sales team and you're having problems, we would love to have you on the actual live stream and basically do some free work. So as long as you're comfortable with that, right? And we wouldn't be showing any personal data or anything along those lines. We'd just be helping you actually build it out live. So with that being said, if you're interested in doing something like that, let us know. We're happy to have you on. Just shoot me a message or comment down below. You can find me on Instagram as well. Just find Aaron Platt and shoot me a DM. And if you're looking for the baseline metrics tracker, you can get that down below as well. And with that being said, I will see you guys tomorrow. Let's see if I know how to turn this thing off like I did yesterday. This has got to be it.